Hello everyone, next I will share the vascular physiology to you. The blood vessel is a continuous and relatively closed pipeline system, including arteries, capillaries, and veins, which together with the heart constitute the cardiovascular system. The blood volume in the systemic circulation is about 84% of the total blood volume, of which about 64% are located in the venous system. About 13% are located in the large and middle arteries, and about 7% are located in the arterioles and capillaries. The blood volume is in the heart cavity only accounts for about 70%, and the blood volume in the pulmonary circulation accounts for about 9%. The lymphatic system participates in the return of tissue fluid, and the lymph fluid in it flow from the periphery to the heart, and finally into the veins, thus assisting the blood circulation. This section learns from the following four aspects: overview of blood vessels, arterial blood pressure and pulse, venous blood pressure and blood flow, tissue flow, and lymph. The elastic reservoir vessel refers to the aorta, the main trunk of the pulmonary artery and its largest branch. Its wall is thick, rich in elastic fibers, and has obvious elasticity and expandability. When the left ventricle contracts and ejects blood, part of the blood ejected from the ventricle flows forward into the aorta periphery, and the other part is temporarily stored in the aorta, causing the wall to expand, increasing the arterial pressure, and also converting part of the kinetic energy generated by the heart contraction is the elastic potential energy of the blood vessel wall. The elastic reservoir of the aorta converts the intermittent ejection of the ventricle into a continuous flow of blood in the blood vessel, and at the same time reduce the fluctuation of blood pressure during the cardiac cycle. The distribution vessel refers to the middle artery, that is the arterial duct from the elastic reservoir vessel to before branching into small arteries. The function of allocating blood vessels is mainly to transport blood to various organs and tissues. Capillary resistance blood vessels include arterioles. Arterioles are enriched in vascular smooth muscle and maintain a certain degree of tension constriction and physiological conditions. Their diastolic and contractile activities can significantly change the diameter of blood vessels, thereby changing the resistance to blood flow. The blood flow of its organs and tissues is of great significance to the maintenance of arterial blood pressure. Precapillary sphincter refers to the smooth muscle that surrounds the beginning of true capillaries and is part of the resistance vessel. Its diastolic activity can control the opening or closing of capillaries, so it can control the number of capillaries open in a certain period of time. Post-capillary resistant blood vessels refer to the venules, which have a small diameter and can produce a certain resistance to blood flow. The capillaries are located between the arteries and veins, are widely distributed, communicate with each other, and form a capillary network. The capillary has a small caliber, and the tube wall is composed of only a single layer of endothelial cell. It wraps around a thin layer of basement membrane, so its permeability is very high. It is the main place for material exchange inside and outside the blood vessel, so it is also called exchange vessel. The volume vessel is a venous system compared with the artery of the same level. It has a large number of veins, thinner walls, large caliber, and great expandability. In a quiet state, the venous system can hold 60% to 70% of circulation blood volume. When there is a small change in the caliber of the vein, its volume can change significantly, which obviously affects the return blood volume, while the intravenous pressure does not change much at this time. Short-circuit vessels refer to the direct anastomonic branches between small arteries and venules in the vascular bed. They are mainly distributed in the skin of fingers, toes, ears, etc. When the short-circuit blood vessels are opened, the blood in the small arteries can direct into small veins without passing through the capillaries, which is functionally related to the regulation of body temperature. Hemodynamics refer to the mechanics of blood flow in the cardiovascular system. It mainly studies blood flow resistance, blood pressure, and the relationship between them. Because blood contains many components such as blood cells and colloidal substances, blood is not an ideal liquid, and blood vessels are more complex elastic tubes, not rigid tubes. So, hemodynamics not only has the common characteristics of general fluid mechanics, but also has its own specialty. Blood flow refers to the amount of blood flowing through a certain cross-section of the blood vessel in a unit time, also known as volume velocity. Its unit is usually ml/minute or L/minute. The blood flow velocity refers to the movement of the certain particle in the blood in the tissue. When blood flows in a blood vessel, the blood flow velocity is proportional to the blood flow and inversely proportional to the cross-sectional area of the blood vessel. Poiseuille's law studies the law of liquid flow in a pipeline system to calculate the liquid flow. Poiseuille's law applies to the stable flow of viscous liquids in rigid pipes. The blood flow is mainly related to the diameter of blood vessels. The laminar flow and turbulence are two ways of blood flowing in blood vessels. In laminar flow, the flow direction of each particle in the liquid is the same, parallel to the long axis of the pipe, but the flow velocity of each particle is different. The velocity as the axis is the fastest, and the closer the pipe wall is, the slower the velocity. Poiseville law only applies to laminar flow and normal circumstances. The blood flow of the human body is mainly laminar flow. However, when the blood flow speed accelerates to a certain degree, the laminar flow is destroyed. At this time, the flow direction of each particle in the blood is no longer consistent, and a vortex appears, which is called turbulence or vortex. Blood flow resistance refers to the resistance encountered when blood flows through a blood vessel, which is mainly caused by the friction between the flowing blood and the blood vessel wall and the molecules inside the blood. The main parts of resistance are small blood vessels. The blood flow resistance can be calculated by the following formula. R is the blood flow resistance. R is the blood viscosity. L is the vessel length, and R is the vessel radius. The main factor affects blood viscosity are as followed. Hematocrit is the most important factor in determining blood viscosity. The greater the hematocrit, the higher the viscosity of the blood. The shear rate of the blood flow refers to the ratio of the difference between the flow velocity of two adjacent layers of blood and the thickness of the liquid layer in the case of laminar flow. The viscosity of the homogeneous liquid does not change with the change of the shear rate. This liquid is called Newtonian flow, such as plasma. When the diameter of the blood vessel is large, the effect on the viscosity of the blood is small, and when the diameter of the blood flowing through is less than 0.2 to 0.3 millimeter, as long as the cutting rate is high enough, the blood viscosity will decrease as the diameter of the blood vessel decreases. The viscosity of the blood can increase with the decreases of temperature. The pressure of the blood flowing in the blood vessel on the side wall of the blood vessel, such as the pressure per unit area, is called blood pressure. According to the International Standard Measurement Unit, the unit of blood pressure is par or kilopar, usually in millimeters, means that 1 millimeter Hg is equal to 0.133 kappa, and blood pressure usually refers to arterial blood pressure. Large venous pulse pressure and atrial pressure are low, often in centimeters of watt column. As a unit, 1 cm is equal to 0.098 kappa. Arterial blood pressure usually refers to the aortic blood pressure. The condition for the formation of arterial blood pressure mainly include the following four aspects. The cardiovascular system has sufficient blood filling. cardiac ejection. This is a necessary condition for the formation of arterial blood pressure. During the cardiac cycle, arterial blood pressure will change periodically. Arterial blood pressure increases when ventricles contract, and blood pressure decreases when diastole. Peripheral resistance mainly refers to small arteries and arterioles to blood resistance to flow. The role of elastic reservoir of the aorta. This is of great significance to reduce the fluctuation of arterial blood pressure in the cardiac cycle. There are two main methods of arterial blood pressure measurement: direct measurement and indirect measurement. At present, non-invasive and simple indirect measurement methods are commonly used in clinical practice. Since the blood pressure drop in the aorta is very small, the bronchial artery blood pressure measured on the upper arm is usually represented as arterial blood pressure. Arterial blood pressure can be expressed by values such as systolic blood pressure, diastolic blood pressure, pulse pressure, and mean arterial pressure. The systolic blood pressure is the blood pressure when the ventricle reaches its highest value in the middle of the systole. Diastolic blood pressure refers to the blood pressure at which the end-diastolic arterial blood pressure reaches its lowest value. Pulse pressure is abbreviated as pulse pressure, which refers to the difference between systolic and diastolic blood pressure. The mean arterial pressure is the average value of the arterial blood pressure at each moment in a cardiac cycle, and roughly equal to the diastolic pressure pulse once the pulse pressure. In a quiet state, the systolic blood pressure of healthy young people in my country is 100 to 120 millimeters Hg. The diastolic blood pressure is 60 to 80 mmHg, and the pulse pressure is 30 to 40 mmHg. The average arterial pressure is approximately equal to the diastolic blood pressure plus 1/3 pulse pressure. If the systolic blood pressure is greater than 140 millimeters Hg, diastolic blood pressure is greater than 90 mmHg. This means hypertension. Systolic blood pressure is less than 9 mmHg. Diastolic blood pressure is less than 60 mmHg. This means hypotension. There are individual age and gender difference in arterial blood pressure. With age, blood pressure shows a gradual increased trend, and the increase in systolic blood pressure is more significant than the increase in diastolic blood pressure. The blood pressure of women before menopause is slightly lower than that of men of the same age, and after menopause, it is basically the same as the that of men of the same age, or even slightly surpassed. Under normal circumstances, the arterial blood pressure of the upper arms of the normal people also has the characteristics of the high left and low right, and the difference can reach 5 to 10 millimeters Hg. In addition, blood pressure of normal people also has a daily rhythm of circadian fluctuations. Most people's blood pressure is lowest at 2 to 3 in the morning, and there is a peak at 6 to 10 in the morning and 4 to 8 in the afternoon. It shows a slow downward trend from 8 in the evening, showing a phenomenon of double peaks and double valleys. Under physiological conditions, changes in arterial blood pressure are the result of a combination of many factors. Common factors are as follows. Changes in stroke volume mainly affects systolic blood pressure. Changes in heart rate mainly affect diastolic blood pressure. When the heart rate increases, the ventricular diastolic period is significantly shortened, and the amount of blood remaining in the aorta increases, resulting in a significant increase in diastolic blood pressure. Peripheral resistance mainly affects diastolic blood pressure. When peripheral resistance increases, the speed of blood outflow during diastole slows down, so the diastolic blood pressure is significantly increased. The elastic reservoir of the aorta and aorta mainly reduce the fluctuation range of arterial blood pressure during the cardiac cycle and increases the pulse pressure. Arterial pulse refers to the periodic fluctuation of the arterial wall caused by periodic changes in the pressure and the volume in the artery during each cardiac cycle. The waveform of the arterial pulse. The waveform of the superficial arterial pulse recorded with the pulse recorder is called a pulse diagram. A typical arterial pulse graph is composed of ascending and descending branches, and different waveforms have different meanings. The propagating speed of the arterial pulse wave to the peripheral artery. The artery pulse can travel along the artery wall to the peripheral blood vessels, and its propagation speed is much faster than the blood flow speed. That's all for this lesson. Thank you for your attention. See you later.